Hi friends and welcome. All of this is the Wandering MBA. Today I want to talk about our stories. We all tell ourselves stories to live, to understand the world around us, to justify our actions, and sometimes even our own existence. The thing is, though, that stories also can be sneaky. Especially the ones that create pain. You know, that they're playing over and over and over in your head, and they do cause some damage, like a drop of water that is dropping incessantly over a rock until it carves a hole in it. And the reason why I say they're sneaky is that, well, since they're in our heads, they feel familiar, right? They feel safe, they feel private, they feel like they're our own. Except a lot of the times, they're not even ours. We bought into them. They're borrowed stories crafted years ago, sometimes centuries ago, by someone who doesn't know us and doesn't know our life. But we've bought into these stories for several reasons, but the most common one is to fit in. Like this story, for example, that by the time you're 30, you should at least have figured out your life. Like your personal life, your professional life, your spiritual life, your life. So naturally, as with everything that I go through that makes me feel like I should have figured this out ages ago, today I'm coming to you to share my least favorite type of borrowed stories, also known as my chaquetas mentales. I bring you the scariest, the most energy and life-sucking of them all. Dun, da, da, da. The high horse stories. I don't know why I just did this. I have never ridden a horse. Okay, you know the high horse. It's the one that you're riding when you feel that your position and overall actions are justified by your higher standards. This is a very reggaetonero horse. It can be moral standards, professional standards. In practice, you may know it as the scolding voice in your head. The one that will talk you down with disappointment. The same one that when you're down, you will not miss an opportunity to say, have you noticed that shameful delta? And the shameful delta that the voice is referring to is the difference between where the stories you bought into say you're supposed to be and where your life actually is. And this is exactly what the scolding voice in your head uses to just keep you down. Well, guess what? Believe it or not, I'm addicted to it. Here's how it works. As I said, it starts with a borrowed story. Borrowed story. That got in here either consciously or unconsciously. For example, that a 29-year-old woman with an MBA degree like myself should have a fantastic job, well on her way to climbing the corporate ladder to a fantastic leadership position, or that she should be rocking the world with her fantastic startup business. All while being, of course, in a stable long-term relationship, eating only the healthiest and most wholesome food that she can find, nurture her fabulously sexy and strong yoga body, whatever that means, and maintaining healthy and fulfilling relationships with her friends and family. Contrasted with my life. I am married, yes. I do yoga, yes, but not as often as I could. I am currently jobless, technically homeless, and definitely not eating as many veggies as I'd want to. I love my family and I truly love my friends. But for the past year, I've had days and maybe weeks at a time that I've just wanted to keep to myself, so much so that people ask, have you just fallen off the earth? I haven't even had a phone for the last 3 months. Can you see the discrepancies between the borrowed story that I bought into and my actual life? See, sometimes, a lot of times, our life events are simply not building up to that borrowed story's plot, which is why the high horse story is so dangerous. Because from there, sitting straight on my high horse, I get the perfect view to look disapprovingly at my own actions while I go, clearly, I'm not doing nor being enough to live this borrowed story that I'm supposed to be living. And if I can see that, I'm sure others can see that too. So what I'll do is that I will openly recognize my insufficiency by self-inflicting the judgment and criticism that, in my head, the group that I want to be a part of usually exercises on cases like mine. You know, for those who fail to meet the standards of the borrowed story. What do you say? Sound familiar? Stay with me. In both acknowledging the existence of the story that I'm not meeting and my own inability to fulfill it, and good dose of self-deprecating manner, I will have suddenly become my own executioner. And there, as I find myself pointing my own finger at me, I will have made up for my discrepancies. In my head, I will be fitting in. God, it's like an emotional self-flagellation for my own shortcomings. But the self-righteous ego boost that I get from it, it's there. Because although I am failing, if I ride that horse and I lament my shortcomings out loud, at least I can prove that I still believe in the story, that I am part of the club. Please, don't kick me out of the club. Okay, as you've probably realized by now, this high horse thing is simply unsustainable. I mean, who wants to be suffering at the hand of the one thing that you cannot hide from? Your thoughts. So how am I dealing with this? Funny you should ask. 3 things. 1, humility. In other words, get off your forking high horse and do the work of questioning the validity of this story for your own life. A 29-year-old woman should have her personal and professional life figured out by now. Well, is it true? Can I with absolute certainty know that this is true? What's the reality? What our borrowed stories say it's supposed to be, or what it actually is? In the words of Byron Katie, you will only lose your fight with reality 100% of the time. 2, responsibility. Self-inflicting, ruthless judgment only puts me in the victim seat, and that's it sure is comfortable. Yep, like a warm jacuzzi. Instead, this time, it's actually filled with stinky poop. So I ask myself, do I like the way that this story is making me feel? If the answer is no, okay, cool. Then how can I change it? How can I see my situation differently? And most importantly, how can I get away from this horrible poop smell? Taking responsibility for drafting my own story according to how I see the world and my personal circumstances is the most empowering decision that I've made in a long time. And I continue to make it every day. Number 3, courage. Okay, so I've recognized it, I've owned it, I've taken responsibility for it. Now I have to act on it. I have to actually try out new ways of seeing the world and interacting with my reality. It's time to silence my head and turn up the volume of my heart. Yes, it sounds cheesy, but how does it feel? How does it feel to not measure up to the borrowed stories? Well, I can hop on my high horse, beat myself down with a horrible judgmental lecture, or I can try to be brave and step out of this borrowed storytelling. I can try to honor and appreciate what and where I am and dare moving forward. And remember the cheesy part? Remember the heart? That's where the courage comes from, my friends. What did you think? That it came from your story-ridden head? Nope. It comes from the heart, my knowing in here that I am here to be the best that I can be. And that in me is everything I need to make this happen. It takes courage to see these borrowed stories for what they are. It's taken me years to realize that. And even when I've had realized it, it takes even more courage to dare to step away, to give them up and figure out your own stories. To decide to stop choosing the boxes where we want to fit in. Boxes. I'm a mime. And instead, decide to shape your own narrative. As with everything in life, there will be good days where you will challenge and start to change the stories that are holding you back. And there will also be not so good days where it'll be too scary to get up from that stinky victim seat. And that's fine too. As it turns out, my newfound definition of successfully adulting is living a life where you have personally either reviewed or written or edited your own anthology of stories, instead of beating yourself in the head with someone else's storybook. So how about we stop trying to meet the standards of other stories and instead do our very best to meet this moment in our lives? So I want to know about your experiences with your stories. Have you been able to see them eye to eye? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching. Mwah.